What's up everyone, and welcome to the most comprehensive character analysis of Pokémon Legends ZA you'll find anywhere. Over the next hour and 30 minutes, we're going to dive deep into every single important character in this game. Their backstories, their motivations, their teams, and most importantly, how they all connect to create one of the most emotionally complex stories Pokémon has ever told. Before we begin, I need to give you a massive spoiler warning. We are going to be discussing everything. The entire main story, post-game revelations, character arcs, plot twists, the real person Tawny was looking for, and yes, even AZ's the end of the game. If you haven't finished Pokémon Legends ZA and want to experience these story beats for yourself, this is your chance to click away. I'm going to be covering 22 major characters, 4 legendary Pokémon, as characters in their own right, and we'll be exploring themes of redemption, generational trauma, and what it truly means to choose giving over taking. We'll also dive into some speculation, particularly about Lita's connection to a certain X and Y character, and a wild theory about Corbeau potentially being related to Kieran from Paldea. I'll make it clear when we're moving from confirmed information to theory territory. To understand Legends ZA, we need to start 3,000 years in the past with AZ, because everything in this game traces back to one king's terrible choice and his attempts to atone for it. 3 millennia ago, AZ was a king, caught up in a devastating war that consumed Kalos. Many Pokemon lost their lives, and in the chaos, AZ's beloved Floette, a Pokemon with a unique black flower, was sent to the front lines where she died. Most people grieve and eventually move on. AZ had the resources and knowledge to do something about it. He created a device that could grant life, and he used it to revive his Floette. It worked. She came back. But here's the horrifying truth. AZ was so hurt and traumatized that they had hurt his beloved Floette that he relaunched the ultimate weapon to end the war once and for all. Floette was brought back at the cost of countless other lives. AZ's rage at the war hadn't subsided. He couldn't forgive the world that had hurt the Pokemon he loved, so he transformed his device into the ultimate weapon. The weapon fired a beam of light that reached into the heavens and poured down, burning away everything upon the earth. AZ ended the war by becoming destruction itself, committing genocide to stop the conflict. The war ended, but Floette realized the truth. She understood that the life AZ had given her was stolen from other Pokemon, that thousands or millions had died so she could live. She couldn't bear it. Floette left AZ and wandered alone for 3,000 years. AZ has been alive since before the rise and fall of countless civilizations. He watched empires crumble. Technology evolved from primitive tools to modern innovations. Outlived everyone he ever knew. And through all that time, the one being he loved most wanted nothing to do with him because of what he'd done. But AZ didn't just wander aimlessly. About 2,000 years ago, during his wandering, a man of great power asked for his help with a way to protect Kalos. Instead of making another device that would take from others, AZ decided to make one that would share the eternal life he had given Floette. He called it Ange, and he embedded it into Prism Tower in Lumiose City. Ange was designed as the opposite of the ultimate weapon. Where the ultimate weapon destroyed life, Ange would grant eternal life to all living beings it touched. It was AZ's attempt to give meaning to the curse he had placed on Floette, his way of atoning by creating something that could benefit everyone rather than stealing from them. He planned to activate it after reuniting with Floette, but that day never came. They lived in a time of peace, and Ange remained dormant. Fast forward to 5 years before Legends, Lysandra, leader of Team Flare, discovered the ultimate weapon buried beneath Geosenge town. His philosophy was that the world was growing too crowded, that resources would run out, and the only way to create a world of beauty was to reduce the number of living things. So he activated the ultimate weapon. There was an explosion. Zygarde, the legendary guardian of Kalos, intervened and used its power to protect all living things in the area from the deadly light, saving even Lysandra himself, but doing so exhausted Zygarde's power. And the weapon's activation had an unintended consequence. It awakened Ange. Ange, sensing danger, began emitting excessive amounts of mega power. This energy started causing wild Pokemon throughout Lumiose City to undergo Rogue Mega Evolution, a state where Pokemon Mega evolve without trainers and experience immense pain and aggression. This is the crisis the entire game revolves around, all because of AZ's original sin 3,000 years ago and Lysandra's actions 5 years ago. Your rival character, Tawny or Urban, depending on your player gender, seems like a typical energetic Pokemon rival when you first meet her. She's filming content for Hotel Z, she's excited about battles, she helps you chase down the Pancham that stole your bag. But very early on, the game drops hints that something deeper is going on. She wears a distinctive jacket that belonged to her mother, and she mentions she came to Lumiose looking for someone. This isn't just a side quest. Finding answers about her family is the entire reason she's in Lumiose. The ZA Royale, Team MZ, all of it is secondary to her real mission. Tawny becomes the leader of Team MZ, recruiting you, Naveen, and Lida to compete in the ZA Royale tournament. But she's also dealing with serious financial problems. She borrowed 100,000 Pokédollars from the Rust Syndicate to make promotional videos for Hotel Z. Due to predatory interest rates she didn't notice in the fine print, that debt ballooned to 1,000,000 Pokédollars. Despite her outward confidence and leadership, Tawny is struggling. She's in debt, searching for family she's never met, trying to keep Hotel Z afloat for AZ. who took her in, and leading a team of people all dealing with their own problems. But she never complains, never breaks down. She keeps pushing forward, because that's what leaders do. Her team reflects her role as your rival. She uses the 2 starter Pokemon you didn't choose, so if you pick Totodile, she'll have Chikorita and Tepig. Early on, she adds a Manectric that can Mega Evolve, which becomes her signature Pokemon for most of the mid-game. By the post-game Infinite ZA Royale, when you face her as the 15th challenger, she has a full team of 6 Pokemon at level 72, and her final Pokemon is AZ's Floette, the eternal flower form that can Mega Evolve. After you defeat her in that battle, after you've seen her use Mega Floette with its exclusive move Light of Ruin, Emma the detective shows up and says she needs to speak with Tawny privately. They go to Quasartico Incorporated headquarters, and President Jet, the CEO of the company funding the urban redevelopment of Lumiose City, asks Tawny about her jacket. Tawny confirms it was a keepsake from her mother, and that's when Jet drops the bomb. That jacket was originally a gift that Jet gave to someone, and she's quite sure that Tawny's mother was her daughter. Tawny's mother worked to develop hologram technology, the same technology that would later be used by Team Flare, and that Quasartico used to create the holotech barriers around wild zones. Jet and Tawny's mother had a falling out over the direction of the company, and Tawny's mother left to pursue her own research. She ended up doing work for, or receiving support from Lysandra and Team Flare, which means Tawny's mother was indirectly connected to the organization that nearly destroyed Kalos 5 years ago. Tawny's mother burned herself out from the work, had to go to some faraway region to rest and recover, and based on Tawny's dialogue, she either passed away or is still in that distant region, unable to return. President Jet, feeling responsible for concealing the truth about Prism Tower's threat to the public for so long, announces she's stepping down as CEO of Quasartico Incorporated. She asks Tawny, her granddaughter, to take over as CEO to provide continuity to the urban redevelopment project. Tawny is shocked. She's still a teenager or a young adult. She's been running a small team of 4 people, and suddenly she's being asked to run a massive corporation. But she accepts because she knows it's what her mother would have wanted. Tawny realizes that if she becomes CEO, she won't have time to be a Pokemon trainer anymore. She has to give up battling, give up Team MZ, give up the thing that brought her to Lumiose in the first place. So she makes the most selfless decision in the entire game. She gives AZ's Floette to you, the player, along with its Mega Stone. She trusts you to keep Lumiose safe, to do what AZ would have wanted, to be the trainer she can no longer be. And then she asks you to break the news to Lita and Naveen because she can't bear to do it herself. This is a rival character who doesn't just lose to you in battles, she loses her entire dream of being a trainer. But she does it willingly because she understands that some responsibilities are bigger than personal desires. Now we need to talk about Floette herself, because she's not just AZ's partner Pokemon, she's a fully realized character with her own agency, trauma, and journey. The Floette we're talking about isn't a normal Floette, she's the eternal flower form, distinguished by the black flower she carries. When we first meet her in Legends ZA, she appears at night when you and Tawny are being cornered by aggressive trainers in a battle zone. She uses Light of Ruin to protect you, then disappears. As the game progresses, you learn her story through AZ's explanations and files found in Team Flare's underground laboratory. When AZ transformed his life-granting device into the ultimate weapon and used it to end the war by burning Kalos, Floette realized what had happened. She understood that her life had been purchased with the deaths of countless other Pokemon, that AZ had become a monster in his quest to protect her, that she was the reason for genocide, even if indirectly. The guilt and horror drove her to leave AZ and wander the world alone for 3,000 years. Carrying the weight of knowing her existence cost so many others their lives. Floette's ability to use Light of Ruin is thematically perfect because it's a powerful fairy-type attack that deals massive damage, but also heavily damages the user. It's a move that represents self-sacrifice, the pain of existence, how trying to protect others can hurt yourself. Every time Floette uses Light of Ruin, she's essentially saying, I will take the pain, I will bear the cost, I will suffer, so others don't have to. The reason Floette returns to AZ after 3,000 years only happens because the protagonists of X and Y show AZ what a true trainer really is. The ending battle in X and Y opens AZ's eyes to the bond between Pokemon and trainers, which is why Floette returns to AZ after 3,000 years of watching over him from the shadows. When he gets his light back, that's when his beloved Floette comes back to him to stay by his side in his final moments. When Tawny gives Floette to you in the post-game, it's the end of a 3,000-year journey. Floette finally has a partner who proved themselves worthy by choosing to give rather than take, by calming rogue Mega Pokemon, something which AZ would have wanted, by helping people. AZ appears throughout the game as the owner of Hotel Z, impossibly tall, speaking in an archaic, formal way that immediately tells you this person is not from this time. Between the events of X and Y and Legends ZA, Floette returned to AZ after 3,000 years of separation. AZ himself says he no longer has it in him to be a trainer. He's spent 3,000 years carrying guilt and regret. He's tired, he's broken, and he knows he can't be the hero this time. This is why AZ takes you in at Hotel Z, why he gives you his Lucario and a Mega Ring to fight the first rogue Mega Absol, why he provides you with your starter's Mega Stone. AZ is passing the torch to a new generation. He's finally accepting that his role isn't to be the hero, but to enable others to be heroes. When Tawny becomes CEO and gives you Floette, this is the culmination of AZ's 3,000-year journey. Floette, the Pokemon he sacrificed everything for, now willingly goes with you to continue protecting Lumiose. At the end of the game, AZ finally finds peace. After everything, after 3,000 years of guilt and wandering, AZ dies. The game shows him finally resting, having atoned for his sins. AZ's death is peaceful, quiet, the end of the longest redemption arc in Pokemon history. He doesn't get a fairy tale ending where everything is forgiven and forgotten, but he gets peace knowing that his atonement led to something good, that Lumiose is saved, and that Floette is with someone worthy. Naveen is one of your teammates in Team MZ, and one of the most interesting character studies, because he starts off as kind of insufferable and grows into someone genuinely admirable. When you first meet Naveen in Hotel Z, he's a fashion designer who creates the Team MZ jackets by hand. Right away you get the impression Naveen is particular. He's picky about aesthetics, cares deeply about presentation and quality, and isn't shy about expressing his opinions. Early on he refuses to eat Tawny's croissant curry, and while this seems like just a funny quirk, it reveals something important. Naveen has very defined tastes, and he's not going to pretend to like something just to fit in. Naveen came to Lumiose on scholarship, presumably for fashion or design, and moved into Hotel Z at some point during his studies. But he's not just living there because it's convenient. He's living there because he left his home. Naveen has a grandmother who disapproves of his passion for fashion design. She thinks he should focus on academics, on a more traditional career. This disagreement came to a head when his grandmother threw away his sewing materials, essentially trying to destroy his dream, and Naveen made the painful decision to leave home rather than give up what he loves. This context reframes everything about Naveen's character. He's not particular about fashion because he's snobby. He's particular because fashion is the thing he chose over his family, the passion he dedicated his life to, even though it cost him his relationship with his grandmother. If he's going to make that sacrifice meaningful, he has to be excellent at it. When you battle Naveen early in the game, his team consists of Spinarak that evolves into Ariados Sableye, and Scraggy that evolves into Scrafty. These Pokemon choices are unconventional, not the typical popular picks, reflecting Naveen's own sense of being different or outside the mainstream. But it's Scrafty that really represents his core character. Scrafty is literally wearing pants that are falling down, constantly pulling them up, and when it Mega evolves into Mega Scrafty, it gains a hoodie and this super chill aesthetic. Mega Scrafty is described as having its hands in its pockets, just vibing and chilling. This is exactly what Naveen needs to learn, to stop being so tense about everything and just exist comfortably. As you progress through the game and face rogue Mega Pokemon together, Naveen starts to open up. When you go to fight Mega Banette in John Sector 9, Naveen accompanies you with his Ariados, and during this battle we see a different side of him. He's actually helpful. His Ariados always attacks the real Mega Banette even when there are clones, and he expresses genuine concern about the situation. The moment that really defines Naveen's character growth is when he challenges you to battle outside Hotel Z before the Canary promotion match. After you defeat him, instead of being bitter or distant, he actually helps you. He tells you about the Canary Quiz Whiz contest, gives you information about how to enter, and even helps you during the quiz by providing answers. This is huge for Naveen, because it shows he's learned to put the team's success above his own ego. By the time the post-game rolls around and Tawny has to become CEO, Naveen's growth is complete. When you have to tell him the team is disbanding, that the leader he respects is leaving, that the family he found at Hotel Z after leaving his grandmother is changing forever, we can imagine his reaction is bittersweet. He's happy for Tanya because he understands the importance of what she's doing, but he's also sad because Team MZ represented a place where he was accepted. Naveen's arc is about learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, that letting people in doesn't mean losing yourself, and that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. Lita is introduced as an energetic dancer who came to Lumiose City on scholarship, similar to Naveen, and moved into Hotel Z. From the beginning, Lita is characterized by her enthusiasm, positivity, and genuine kindness. She's the emotional heart of Team MZ, always trying to keep spirits up, always encouraging Tawny when the leader is stressed. When you first battle Lita, her team consists of Clauncher level 22, Vanillite level 22, and Staryu level 23. These Pokemon are cute and whimsical, reflecting Lita's bubbly personality, but it's Staryu that becomes her signature Pokemon. And this is where things get really interesting. Staryu evolves into Starmie, and in Legends ZA, Starmie can Mega evolve into Mega Starmie, which has one of the most bizarre designs in the entire game. Mega Starmie gains stretchy elastic limbs, stands on two legs like a humanoid, becomes physically oriented rather than special attack focused. The design is described as looking like Patrick Star from SpongeBob, goofy and derpy, but somehow awesome. This choice of Starmie is fascinating because Staryu and Starmie have a strong association with a specific character from Pokémon X and Y, because she resembles a lot of Tierno from Pokémon X and Y. who's also your rival and a dancer. The game doesn't outright say it, but it's heavily implied that she is, in fact, Tierno's little sister, incredibly kind and supportive, and his signature style revolves around water types and the rhythmic movement that Pokemon like Staryu represent. The evidence is substantial. First, both Lida and Tierno are dancers, not casual dancers, but people for whom dance is a core part of their identity. Second, they both came to Lumiose City. Third, Lida uses Staryu, which evolves into Starmie, heavily associated with dance and rhythm, the exact thing Tierno is passionate about. Fourth, both have similar personality traits, optimistic, kind, emotionally supportive, using their passion for dance to connect with others and Pokemon. Fifth, Lida came to Lumiose on scholarship for dance, meaning she's exceptionally talented. If Tierno is her brother and he's known for his dance routines with Pokemon, it makes perfect sense his sister would also be a gifted dancer who pursues it professionally. The timeline works out. X and Y take place several years before Legends. If Lida is indeed Tierno's sister, it adds depth because it means she's following in her brother's footsteps, pursuing dance not just because she loves it, but because she grew up seeing her brother's passion for it. If Tierno participated in the events of X and Y, Lida represents the idea that not every hero has to be tortured or conflicted, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can be is genuinely kind, and that choosing to spread joy and positivity even when the world is difficult is its own form of courage. Now we need to talk about Lysandre, or as he's known for most of the game, L, because this is one of the most complex redemption arcs in Pokemon history. Lysandre was the main antagonist of Pokemon X and Y, the charismatic leader of Team Flare who believed the only way to create a beautiful world was to reduce the population through genocide. He was tall, handsome, had distinctive red hair and a leonine mane style, and spoke with conviction. Lysandre wasn't evil for the sake of being evil. He had a philosophical worldview that led him to monstrous conclusions. He looked at the world and saw that as populations grew, resources would become scarce and suffering would increase. His solution was to drastically reduce the number of living beings so survivors could live in abundance and beauty without conflict. In X and Y, we defeated Lysandre, we stopped Team Flare, but the ultimate weapon did fire 5 years ago. There was an explosion, and Lysandre should have died. He wanted to die, but Zygarde intervened. Zygarde used its power to protect all living things in the area from the deadly light, and that included Lysandre. Zygarde saved the man who had just tried to commit genocide, not because Lysandre deserved it, but because Zygarde's nature is to protect life, all life, even the life of someone who tried to destroy it. Saving Lysandre came at a cost. The effort exhausted Zygarde's power, and Lysandre himself was buried deep underground with Team Flare's secret base, trapped in rubble and darkness. When he finally emerged, something had changed. The explosion, the trauma, the 5 years of isolation, something caused Lysandre to lose most of his memories. He doesn't remember Team Flare clearly, and doesn't remember his original plans or philosophy. All he knows is that he did something terrible, that the ultimate weapon fired because of him, that he's responsible for the current crisis, and that he needs to make amends. This memory loss is controversial, because it can feel like a cop-out, but the game presents it as a tragedy. When former Team Flare members encounter Lysandre, their reactions are devastating. They scream about how he just forgot, how it's all because of him that they became outcasts and he doesn't even remember them. For the young people whose lives were destroyed by association with Team Flare, Lysandre's memory loss is an insult. But even without his memories, Lysandre still knows he did something unforgivable, and he dedicates himself to fixing it. He takes the name L and works with Zygarde to find a way to stop the crisis threatening Lumiose. He appears throughout the game at key moments, always cloaked and mysterious, always accompanied by Zygarde in 10% form, speaking cryptically about worthiness and responsibility. He says to the player, "I was once among those who would choose to take rather than to give." But that is no way to save the world. This suggests that on some level, whether through Zygarde's influence or his own reflection during those 5 years underground, Lysandre understands his original philosophy was wrong. When you encounter L throughout the story, he's always testing you, watching, to see if you're the kind of person who will give rather than take. In the post-game, when you return to Hotel Z after catching both Xerneas and Yveltal, L appears and challenges you to battle. This isn't to stop you or hurt you, it's a final test. L needs to know with absolute certainty that you're worthy of what comes next, that you're strong enough to handle Zygarde at full power. There's an interesting connection here worth exploring. During Lysandre's backstory, we learn he helped people in Lumiose before Team Flare became fully evil. One of those people was a young street tough named Corbeau. Lysandre showed Corbeau kindness when he needed it most, and Corbeau never forgot that. This creates a complicated dynamic because Corbeau can acknowledge Team Flare did terrible things while also recognizing that Lysandre showed him compassion. When Corbeau eventually encounters Elle in the present, there's likely recognition on some level, a sense that this broken man with missing memories was once someone who believed in him. This shared history adds weight to both characters, showing how Lysandre's actions had ripples both destructive and occasionally constructive. Gisham is the leader of Team Flare Nouveau, and his character could have been a straightforward villain but instead becomes one of the most sympathetic in the game. When you first hear about Team Flare Nouveau, you learn there's a new generation of Team Flare operating in Lumiose. Young people trained by the original Team Flare before its collapse 5 years ago. Your initial reaction is probably suspicion, but as you learn more, you realize the situation is far more tragic than simple villainy. Gisham was a child when Team Flare was at its height, one of the youngest trainers that Lysandra and the organization trained. But here's the crucial thing. Gisham was too young to participate in the ultimate weapon plot. He didn't activate the weapon, didn't hurt anyone, he was just a kid learning from adults he trusted. When Team Flare collapsed and Lysandra disappeared, Gisham and the other young members were left behind, and society immediately branded them as dangerous. It didn't matter that they were children, didn't matter that they hadn't committed any crimes. They were associated with Team Flare, and that was enough for society to reject them completely. Gisham couldn't get a normal job, couldn't pursue normal education, couldn't have a normal life because the moment anyone learned about his past, they would shut him out. He says, "We were mere children born to those who chose to join Team Flare, and yet we too became pariahs in the eyes of society." So Gisham and the other young former Team Flare members formed Team Flare Nouveau, nouveau being French for new, signaling they're trying to create something different. They operate out of the old Lysandra Cafe in Centrico Plaza and provide coffee and food for people who have little else. They've essentially turned Team Flare's old headquarters into a community service operation. When you finally meet Gisham in Team Flare's underground laboratory, he's calm, philosophical, and determined. He doesn't attack you immediately or threaten you. Instead, he wants you to understand. He brings you deeper into the laboratory to show you computer files that reveal AZ's story, Lysandra's research and plans, the ultimate weapon, and its consequences. Gisham isn't trying to justify what Team Flare did. He's trying to help you understand the full context so you can see the current crisis isn't random, but the direct result of actions spanning 2,000 years. After you've seen the truth, Gisham challenges you to battle. He wants to stop you, to see if you're strong enough to handle what's coming. He has vengeances running all throughout his mind because of how society treated him, so he wants to reach rank A and prove that they are more than what people think of them. He wanted Floette. He wanted you to hand over Floette so that he could become the stronger Omega Evolution user and become Zagard's trainer. His team includes Mega Pyroar and Mega Malamar. Pyroar was frequently used by Team Flare members in X and Y, so Gisham using 1 shows his connection to the organization's legacy. After you encounter Gisham again for the Rank A promotion match, you learn his motivation is deeply personal. He says, "I will restore honor to the memory of Team Flare for my..." This reveals something crucial. Gisham's father was part of the original Team Flare, and when Team Flare fell, his father presumably died, disappeared, or was imprisoned. Gisham has been carrying the weight of his father's choices his entire life. When you defeat Gisham and claim Rank A, his reaction is graceful. He says, "I may have been defeated, I may have been found unworthy of becoming Zagard's trainer, but I'll build a life that shows these things aren't what define me." This is huge character growth. Gisham is accepting that he doesn't need to be the hero who saves everyone to prove his worth. He continues, "Lysandra may have gone astray, but there was still true righteousness in his heart, his ideals, the care he showed for us all. If I threw them aside now, I don't know who I'd be." Gisham is wrestling with how you honor the memory of someone who did terrible things but also showed you kindness. His answer is that he doesn't need to separate them. He can acknowledge Lysandra was both a monster and a mentor. He tells you, "If you have need of us, we will come to your aid." After all, Team Flare Nouveau exists to help others so we can make the world beautiful together. True to his word, when the crisis with Prism Tower reaches its peak, and you need to reach Zygard, Team Flare Nouveau helps. Gisham and his crew fight alongside the Rust Syndicate, the Society of Battle Connoisseurs, and all the other groups to protect the city. This is their redemption, not through grand speeches, but through showing up when it matters. Gristle is another member of Team Flare Nouveau who represents an important counterpoint to Gisham's philosophy. While Gisham has found a measure of peace and purpose, Gristle is angry. When you encounter Gristle in the Lysandra Cafe alongside Gisham, his immediate reaction to your presence is hostility. He sees you as an enemy, someone who couldn't possibly understand what they've been through. When Gristle encounters Lysandra in the laboratory, his true pain comes out. Lysandra, with his memory loss, doesn't recognize Gristle, doesn't remember training him. Gristle's reaction is devastating. He screams, "How could he just forget? It's all because of him that the rest of us became outcasts, and he doesn't even remember us." This outburst reveals what's really eating at Gristle. It's not just that society rejected him, it's that the man responsible for all his suffering doesn't even remember him. For Gristle, Lysandra's memory loss is the ultimate insult. His suffering is meaningless. The game doesn't frame Gristle as a villain for being angry. It frames his anger as understandable and valid. But it also shows through his interaction with Gisham that anger alone can't sustain you. Based on the fact Team Flare Nouveau helps during the final crisis, we can infer Gristle eventually chooses to work with Gisham to protect Lumiose, rather than letting his anger paralyze him. This doesn't mean his anger disappears, it just means he's learned to function despite the anger, to be angry and helpful at the same time. Gristle represents the acceptable anger that comes from being unjustly punished, and his presence reminds us that not everyone has to become perfectly healed and peaceful to deserve compassion and support. Emma is the detective who runs the Looker Bureau, and she has fascinating connections to both the past and present of Kalos. When you first meet Emma, she's this energetic, skilled investigator who clearly knows what she's doing. She starts giving you side missions to help people around Lumiose, missing Pokémon, lost items, investigating strange occurrences. But there are hints from the beginning that Emma has a more complicated history. She wears an expansion suit, a piece of technology that enhances her physical abilities and gives her an edge in dangerous situations. The expansion suit was created by Team Flare as one of their legacy projects. Before Team Flare collapsed, the organization tried to ensure their ideals would continue by creating various projects. The expansion suit was one of these, designed to enhance human capabilities and potentially create super soldiers. So Emma, the helpful detective assigning you missions to protect people, is using technology created by terrorists, and she's completely open about it. The fact she runs the Looker Bureau, named after the international police detective from previous games, suggests she's working with law enforcement in an official capacity. Her past has been acknowledged, and she's been given a chance to redeem herself by using her skills to help people. This makes Emma an interesting parallel to Mabel, another character who is part of Team Flare and took a plea deal. Emma's role in the story is primarily as a quest giver and information broker. She's the one who reveals Gisham's connection to Team Flare. She directs you to investigate various mysteries around Lumiose. When President Jet realizes that Tawny is her granddaughter based on the jacket, it's Emma who confirms the connection through her detective work. Emma who brings them together for that emotional scene at Quasartico Incorporated, and Emma who helps Tawny understand her mother's history and the legacy she's inherited. Emma represents the idea that people who've been involved in harmful organizations can still do tremendous good if given the opportunity. Her expansion suit, created by Team Flare for potentially violent purposes, becomes a tool for investigation and rescue in her hands. Mabel is the acting director of the Pokémon Research Lab, and like Emma, her past with Team Flare informs her present. When you first meet Mabel, your rival takes you to the research lab in South Boulevard, after you've caught your first 5 Pokémon. Mabel is this professional, slightly tired-seeming scientist in charge of the facility. She introduces you to her research system, explaining that by completing tasks like catching certain types of Pokémon or defeating Pokémon with specific moves, you'll earn research points that increase your rank and unlock rewards. This system gives you clear objectives, but it also serves a narrative purpose. Mabel is trying to gather as much data as possible about Pokémon behavior, Mega Evolution, and the effects of the Mega Power flooding Lumiose. There's a weight to Mabel you notice quickly. She seems overworked, makes comments about the mayor giving her grief, mentions that people are watching her. Then she reveals why. Mabel was part of Team Flare. She tells you this directly without hesitation or shame, explaining that when Team Flare collapsed 5 years ago, she was taken into custody but took a plea deal. In exchange for cooperation, for sharing what she knew about Team Flare's research and operations, for working under supervision at the research lab where authorities could keep tabs on her, she avoided prison. Mabel says, "I don't really mind telling people if they're merely curious, but there's still people today who react badly when they hear the words Team Flare, so I don't exactly walk around advertising it, but I won't lie about it if asked either." Her role in Team Flare was research-focused, studying Pokémon energy and Mega Evolution, trying to understand the mechanics. This research was likely intended to help Team Flare develop more powerful Pokémon or weaponize Mega Evolution, but the knowledge itself isn't inherently evil. In Mabel's hands now, it's being used to protect people and Pokémon. Her position as acting director is described as easy to keep tabs on, showing the authorities who made the plea deal are still monitoring her. This constant surveillance is part of Mabel's punishment, even though she's technically free. In the post-game, Mabel gives you the quest to find Xerneas. When you complete the main story and return to Hotel Z, Elle tells you 2 Pokémon are going to appear that could bring calamity. Mabel's quest involves going to Wild Zones 3, 5, and 9 to fight powerful wild Pokémon, a Steelix, a Goodra going nuclear, and a massive Pangoro. After you defeat all 3, she reveals these battles were tests to see if you're strong enough to handle Xerneas. She tells you Xerneas is spawning in Wild Zone 11, and you need to catch it. Her willingness to help you find and catch a legendary Pokémon shows how far she's come. She's not trying to capture Xerneas for research or weaponize it. She's actively helping you become strong enough to catch it and partner with it so you can protect Lumiose. Mabel represents redemption through daily work, using her skills and resources to make life better for people. President Jet is the CEO of Quasartico Incorporated, operating behind the scenes for most of the game, but her decisions and actions shape everything in Lumiose City. After the Ultimate Weapon incident 5 years ago, Lumiose lost a massive portion of its population, property values crashed, businesses closed, and the city was in economic and social freefall. The mayor established an urban redevelopment plan, but no private companies wanted to take it on. The potential for loss was too high. But Quasartico Incorporated, led by President Jet, stepped up and agreed to take on the project, investing massive amounts of money into rebuilding Lumiose, creating the Wild Zone system to allow people and Pokémon to coexist safely, and using holotech barriers to contain wild Pokémon. This is presented as a generous act, corporate responsibility at its finest. For most of the game, that's how you're supposed to see it. But as the story progresses, cracks appear in this narrative. When you eventually meet President Jet at Quasartico Incorporated, she reveals the company has been concealing information from the public. They've known Prism Tower was emitting dangerous levels of mega power, they've known this energy was causing rogue mega evolution, and they've been covering it up because they were worried revealing the truth would cause mass panic, and people would flee Lumiose again. President Jet made a calculated decision to hide information the public had a right to know because she believed revealing it would cause more harm than concealing it. She convinced herself that as long as Quasartico was working to solve the problem, as long as they were creating the ZA Royale to find strong Mega Evolution users who could help calm rogue Pokémon, it was okay to keep people in the dark. This is a classic ethical dilemma. The game's stance seems to be that while President Jet's intentions were good, her decision to conceal the truth was still wrong. President Jet herself seems to come to this conclusion, which is why in the post-game she announces she's stepping down as CEO. She says, "I bear responsibility for Quasartico Inc., choosing to conceal the truth about the tower's threat from the public for so long, and so I plan to step down as president." But the most emotionally impactful aspect of President Jet's character is her connection to Taoni. Throughout the game, she's been watching Team MZ, taking a particular interest in Taoni. When Emma discovers a connection between Taoni's jacket and President Jet, she arranges for them to meet. President Jet asks about the jacket, confirms it was from her mother, then reveals the truth. That jacket was a gift Jet gave to someone, and she's quite sure Taoni's mother was her daughter, which makes Taoni her granddaughter. Taoni's mother worked on hologram technology, crucial to both Team Flare's operations and Quasartico's holo-tech systems. President Jet and her daughter had a falling out over the company's direction. Taoni's mother left to pursue her own research, ended up working for Lysandra and Team Flare, and eventually burned herself out from the work. She had to go to some faraway region to rest and recover. President Jet never reconnected with her daughter before the end, never got to meet her granddaughter while Taoni was growing up, and she's been carrying the regret of that estrangement for years. The scene where President Jet and Taoni meet is one of the most emotionally powerful moments in the game. President Jet asks if Taoni's mother ever spoke about her, and Taoni says yes, that her mother regretted never talking to her mother again after she left. President Jet says, "If only I'd been less stubborn, if only I'd tried to reach back across the divide, taking responsibility for her part in the estrangement." Then she asks Taoni to take over as CEO to provide continuity for the urban redevelopment plan, to keep the company in the family. Taoni agrees because she knows it's what her mother would have wanted. This is a bittersweet ending. They found each other, but only after the person who connected them is gone. The scene where Taoni is protecting Jet gives us a different story. Once we learn that fact, that was in fact Taoni's grandmother, she was protecting against a crowd of people. This is a family call without even realizing it. Vinny is President Jet's secretary at Quasartico Incorporated, and while he's not as prominent as some other characters, he plays a crucial role as an information broker, coordinator, and calm professional presence. When you first interact with Quasartico, it's through Vinny. He provides information about where rogue Mega Evolution events are happening, coordinates with Team MZ to assign missions, and maintains communication between the company and trainers working to protect Lumiose. Vinny is always calm, always professional, always has the information you need. When you reach the point where you need to challenge for rank F, you battle Vinny at the battle court next to the Quasartico building. His team consists of Houndoom level 30, Sharpedo level 30, Lopunny level 30, and his signature Mega Drampa level 32. Mega Drampa becomes what can only be described as a Viking ghost dragon boat, with an incredible design that makes it look like something out of Norse mythology. The fact this sweet-looking old dragon Pokemon transforms into something so epic mirrors Vinny himself. He seems like just a calm secretary on the surface, but he's actually someone with hidden depths, capable of handling serious challenges. In the post-game, Vinny's role becomes even more important. When you need to find Yveltal, you go to Quasartico, and Vinny reveals he's developed a simulator machine that allows trainers to fight rogue Mega Pokemon in a controlled environment. This simulator lets you battle Mega Victreebel, Mega Hawlucha, and Mega Tyranitar in sequence as training. The fact Vinny personally developed this shows he's not just an administrative assistant, but a skilled technician and inventor. Vinny represents competent middle management, the people who actually keep organizations running while executives get the credit. Corbeau is the leader of the Rust Syndicate, and this is one of the most unexpectedly sympathetic characters in the entire game. When you first hear about the Rust Syndicate, it's because Taoni reveals she borrowed money from them, and due to predatory interest rates, that debt ballooned to 1,000,000 Pokédollars. Your immediate reaction is probably that the Rust Syndicate are loan sharks taking advantage of desperate people. When you first encounter Rust Syndicate members, they seem intimidating. They talk tough, they make it clear they expect payment, but as you learn more about Corbeau and the Rust Syndicate, you realize the situation is far more nuanced. The Rust Syndicate operates various businesses including security services, Pokemon couriers, and construction work. While they admit some operations are not entirely above board, they're not just a criminal gang. They're a community organization providing services and jobs in areas of Lumiose that legitimate businesses have abandoned. They have a motto, clean the city of dead rust, which sounds aggressive but actually means they're trying to remove decay and corruption from Lumiose in their own way. When you eventually go to the Rust Syndicate headquarters in the Blue District to discuss Tawny's debt, you're challenged by grunts at the door and then by Philippe, Corbeau's right-hand man. Philippe uses Steel-type Pokemon including Steelix, Scizor, and Mega Skarmory, all level 46-47. After you defeat Philippe, you meet Corbeau himself. Corbeau is designed to look like a King Gambit, with the headquarters having King Gambit statues and decorations, establishing chess and strategy as central to his character. Corbeau doesn't immediately threaten you or demand payment. Instead, he offers a deal. If Team MZ completes jobs for the Rust Syndicate, he'll reduce Tawny's debt. These jobs turn out to be hunting rogue Mega Pokemon, clearing out dangerous wild Pokemon from areas where they're threatening people, basically community service that helps protect Lumiose. The Rust Syndicate could have demanded money, threatened violence, tried to exploit Team MZ's desperation, but instead Corbeau recognizes talent and decides that having skilled trainers working to protect the city is more valuable than extracting payment from people who can't afford it. You learn more about his philosophy and history. The Rust Syndicate isn't just taking advantage of Lumiose's crisis. They're actively trying to protect areas that official authorities have written off. When you complete all 3 Rogue Mega missions, Corbeau calls you back for additional jobs and eventually challenges you to a promotion match for Rank C. He uses Arbok level 50, Gyarados level 51, Roserade level 51, and his signature Mega Scolipede. 3 of his Pokemon have poison typing, which creates a team theme, and Mega Scolipede is described as one of the best new Mega designs. A massive centipede with white highlights on its black and purple body that looks like something out of Dark Souls. After you defeat Corbeau and achieve Rank C, he's gracious in defeat, respects your strength, and makes a decision that reveals his true character. He completely clears Tawny's debt, not reduces it, not offers a payment plan, completely erases it. Could have kept Team MZ under his thumb by maintaining some level of debt, but instead he acknowledges Team MZ has proven themselves worthy of respect and releases them from all obligations. But the most telling moment comes in the post-battle when Corbeau checks into Hotel Z as a paying guest. He stays overnight, he's polite and respectful, and when he checks out he leaves a tip of exactly 100,000 Pokédollars, the amount Tawny originally borrowed before the interest made it balloon. This gesture is loaded with meaning. Corbeau is essentially saying he never wanted to exploit Tawny, that the debt was always going to be handled fairly, that he was testing Team MZ's character rather than trying to profit from their desperation. The fact he tips exactly the amount of the original loan shows. This is intentional. This is Corbeau making sure Tawny and AZ have the resources they need to keep Hotel Z running. Corbeau's backstory adds even more depth. He was a street tough in his youth, nowhere to go, and during that time he received help from Lysandra, who was supporting young people in Lumiose before Team Flare became fully evil. Corbeau never forgot that kindness, and it's part of why he has complicated feelings about Lysandra and Team Flare. He can acknowledge they did terrible things while also recognizing Lysandra showed him compassion when he needed it most. This shared history with Lysandra explains a lot about Corbeau's character. He learned from Lysandra that sometimes helping people means going outside traditional systems, that real change comes from direct action rather than waiting for institutions to fix problems. But unlike Lysandra, Corbeau never twisted that philosophy into justifying mass murder. He kept the core lesson, help people who need it, while rejecting the extremism. Now here's where we get into some interesting speculation. There's a theory that Corbeau might be related to Kieran from Pokémon Scarlet and Violet's Teal Mask and Indigo Disc DLC. The evidence is circumstantial, but intriguing. First, Kalos and Paldea are next-door regions, geographically close enough that family connections between them are plausible. Second, both Corbeau and Kieran specialize in Poison-type Pokemon, which is a relatively uncommon type specialization. Third, they have similar appearances, both with dark hair and intense expressions. Fourth, and most interesting, is the King Gambit connection. Corbeau's entire aesthetic revolves around King Gambit, with statues and decorations of the Pokemon throughout his headquarters. Kieran in the Indigo Disc DLC has a dramatic character arc that culminates with him using a powerful team, and his connection to chess-like strategic thinking mirrors Corbeau's approach to leadership. Both characters also share similar philosophies about honor, loyalty, and protecting those who can't protect themselves, even if it means operating outside official channels. If Corbeau and Kieran are related, perhaps uncle and nephew, or even father and son separated by circumstances, it would add fascinating depth to both characters. It would suggest that this philosophy of honor-bound protection, of helping the vulnerable even through unconventional means, runs in their family. It would also explain why both gravitate toward poison types, perhaps a family tradition or a shared aesthetic preference passed down through generations. This is purely speculation. The games don't explicitly confirm any connection, but the parallels are striking enough that many players have noticed and theorized about it. The fact that Game Freak often includes subtle connections between regions and characters across different games makes this theory feel plausible rather than far-fetched. This backstory reveals that Corbeau values competence and intelligence, that he can admit when someone is better than him, that loyalty matters more to him than pride. The Rust Syndicate's motto, "Clean the city of dead rust," takes on new meaning with this context. Corbeau sees Lumiose as a place that's corroding, where legitimate institutions have failed, where vulnerable people are being exploited, and he's trying to clean that up in his own way. When the crisis with Prism Tower reaches its peak and you need to reach Zygarde on the rooftops, the Rust Syndicate is there alongside Team Flare Nouveau and everyone else working to save Lumiose. Corbeau represents the idea that morality and legality aren't the same thing, that you can be a criminal and still have ethics, that honor and integrity can exist anywhere if people choose to embrace them. Felipe is Corbeau's right-hand man, and while not as prominently featured, he represents the loyalty and professionalism that makes the Rust Syndicate function. When you first have to enter their headquarters, Felipe intercepts you after you defeat the grunts at the door. He's the final test before you get to meet Corbeau. His team of Steel-type Pokemon shows he's specialized in defense and resistance. Steel types are known for incredible defense, fitting Philippe's role as the person who protects Corbeau and screens people who want access. When you defeat Felipe, he's respectful and professional, acknowledging your strength and leading you inside without resentment. This shows the Rust Syndicate under Corbeau's leadership operates on merit and respect rather than fear. Throughout the game, Felipe serves as a liaison between Team MZ and Corbeau, delivering messages, coordinating jobs, handling logistics. His calm professionalism prevents situations from escalating unnecessarily. Felipe represents the competent lieutenant, the second in command who makes their leader's vision actually happen. The ending. When Corbeau lets you step on his shoulders in order to protect the city is really good character depth. He is ready to throw down his pride for the sake of the city. He respects you as the greatest Mega Evolution user in the city and lets you go over him to stop the city from exploding. This is why Corbeau is my favorite character in a whole of Pokémon Legends. Lady Jacintha is the leader of the Lumiose Society of Battle Connoisseurs, and this is a character who starts as an elegant, wealthy elite who seems generous but becomes increasingly problematic until she literally takes Hotel Z hostage. When you first hear about the Society of Battle Connoisseurs, it's described as a group for children of elites and socialites who share a love of Pokemon battles. This immediately creates a class distinction, and then the upper class society who have access to resources most people don't. Lady Jacintha is designed to look wealthy and fashionable, wearing elaborate clothing that probably costs more than most people in Lumiose earn in a year. When she first appears through her assistant Laban, she invites you and Tony to attend one of the Society's gatherings. This seems like an honor. When you arrive at Hotel Rishisume for the gathering, the event is incredibly lavish, expensive food, performances by renowned artists, elaborate decorations. Jacintha makes a big show of inviting all the talented trainers she's been watching, treating it like she's bestowing an honor. But then Naveen calls Tawny about new rogue Mega Pokemon appearing, and you and Tawny decide to leave the event to handle the crisis, because protecting people is more important than attending a fancy party. This is where Jacintha's true nature starts to show. She's insulted that you would prioritize actual heroism over her event. Later, when you've handled the rogue Mega Crises, Jacintha escalates dramatically. She uses holotech to create the J-Zone, a massive purple barrier that completely surrounds Hotel Z and traps everyone inside. This is essentially taking Hotel Z hostage, preventing anyone from leaving, strangling the hotel's business, all because Jacintha is throwing a tantrum about you not participating in her tournament immediately. When she appears via hologram to explain herself, she's unapologetic. She says that no matter how long she waits, no matter how many times she asks politely, you still refuse to do what's right and participate in her wonderful tournament. So she's had to take matters into her own hands. This is the mindset of someone who's used to getting what she wants, who can't conceive of someone having priorities different from hers, who has the resources to force compliance. Jacintha describes the J-Zone as perfect in every way, everything exactly as she planned, and she brooks no refusal. This is villainy not through malice, but through entitlement. Jacintha doesn't think she's doing anything wrong because in her worldview, her desires and vision of perfection are more important than other people's autonomy. You fight Labane and tell her that you're going to attend regardless, and throughout Jacintha is pleased with herself. However, interesting twist when Zygarde's 10% form appears along with L. They interrupt the proceedings because Zygarde wants to test you, and Jacintha's reaction is surprisingly gracious. She doesn't throw a fit about her tournament being interrupted. Instead, she seems genuinely interested and says having a surprise appearance by a special guest makes the event even more splendid. This suggests Jacintha's obsession with perfection isn't inflexible. She can appreciate when something unexpected improves her vision. After the tournament is complete and you've proven yourself, Jacintha releases the J-Zone and seems satisfied. But then something interesting happens. When the crisis with Prism Tower reaches its peak, Jacintha actually shows up to help. She participates in the strategy meeting at Hotel Z, contributes her resources and knowledge to the effort to save Lumiose. This suggests that underneath the entitlement and obsession with perfection, Jacintha does care about the city. She just has a really warped sense of priorities. Jacinthe represents toxic perfectionism, the kind of person who becomes so obsessed with their vision they're willing to hurt people to achieve it. The fact she ultimately helps during the final crisis doesn't fully redeem her because she never truly acknowledges the J-Zone hostage situation was wrong. Laban is Jacinthe's assistant and the loyal enforcer of the Society of Battle Connoisseurs. When you first meet Labani, she's delivering Jacinthe's invitation, professional, polite, and formal. She wears a maid-style outfit fitting the aesthetic of the high-class service. When you and Tawny decide to leave the Hotel Rishisume gathering early, Labani tries to stop you, insisting you can't just leave. Her distress at your departure is genuine. She seems personally invested in making sure Jacinthe's events go perfectly. Later, when Jacinthe creates the J-Zone, Laban is present and seems uncomfortable, but she doesn't object. This is where Labani's character becomes morally complicated. She's loyal to Jacinthe, genuinely believes in the Society's mission, but she's also enabling behavior that crosses serious ethical lines. Her team consists entirely of Dragon-type Pokemon, Noivern level 53, Tyrantrum level 53, Garchomp level 53, and her signature Mega Dragouge level 54. Dragon types are known for being powerful, rare, and difficult to train, so assembling an entire team shows serious dedication. Mega Dragouge has a purple and white elegant color scheme, becoming a special defensive wall with incredible bulk. This defensive, patient strategy reflects Laban's own character. She's not aggressive or flashy, she's steady, reliable, defensive of Jacinthe and the Society's interests. During the battle, Laban is respectful and professional. After you defeat her, she's gracious, acknowledging your strength without resentment. The question Laban's character raises is how much responsibility does a loyal subordinate bear for their leader's actions? Laban didn't create the J-Zone. She's just following Jacinthe's orders, but does that make her complicit? Different players will have different answers. When the final crisis arrives and Jacinthe decides to help protect Lumiose, Laban is presumably there as well. Laban represents the complicated position of people who work for problematic bosses, who have to choose between their livelihood and their values. Kanari is the most popular streamer in Lumiose City and the face of the DIN4MO fan club, representing modern gaming culture and online fame. When you first hear about Kanari, it's because you need to battle her for your promotion to rank E, but you can't just challenge her directly. You have to go through a whole process that reflects her status as a celebrity. Kanari streams from her setup and rarely appears in person. She has thousands of fans who follow her gameplay and battles. Her fan club DIN4MO is named after her love of electric-type Pokemon, DIN4MO being a stylized way of writing Dynamo which relates to electricity. To challenge Kanari, you first have to participate in the Kanari Quiz Whiz contest, a trivia competition where fans test their knowledge about her. The password to enter is Let's Go DYN4MO. Once in, you answer questions about personal details of her life. Then you battle another superfan named Mani, and if you win, you're asked who owned the laptop Kanari played on as a child, and the answer is your grandpa. This elaborate process shows how modern celebrity works. Fans know incredibly detailed information about their favorite personalities, they compete to prove who's the most dedicated fan, and access to the celebrity is gate-kept behind demonstrations of knowledge and devotion. After winning the quiz, you're directed to find Kanari, but first you battle Tarragon at Racine Construction, who uses Hippowdon, Diggersby, and Mega X Cadril. When you finally meet Kanari in person, she's friendly, but there's a sense she's more comfortable behind a screen than face-to-face. Her team consists entirely of Electric-type Pokemon, Heliolisk level 37, Ampharos level 38, Stunfisk level 38, and her signature Mega Electros level 39. Mega Electros combines visual elements from the entire Dynamo evolution line with enhanced special attack and bulk, featuring bioluminescent patterns and extended appendages that make it look like a powerful deep-sea creature. After you defeat Kanari, she's gracious and congratulatory. She doesn't resent losing. She seems to enjoy the challenge. This graciousness is important because it would be easy for someone in her position to be precious about their record, but Kanari understands losses are part of competitive battling. Later, when you're searching for Ivor's sister Gwyn, you battle Kanari again, and she provides a clue after you win. In the final crisis, Kanari is mentioned as being among those who assist, using her electric-type expertise to fight rogue Pokemon. Kanari represents modern streaming culture in a balanced way. She genuinely loves Pokemon and battling, she's built her following through actual skill, she uses her platform to make people happy. Ivor is the founder of the Fist of Justice dojo, and his entire personality stems from a childhood incident with his sister. When you first encounter Ivor in the Fist of Justice, it's in front of Wild Zone 3, where he and his student Josei are making a speech about their dojo's philosophy. The Fist of Justice believes in training humans to be strong enough to fight Pokemon hand-to-hand. The idea being that if humans are powerful in their own right, they can better understand and partner with their Pokemon. This philosophy sounds extreme, but as you learn more about Ivor, you realize this obsession with physical strength comes from a very specific place. When you're searching for Gwyn because Ivor needs her phone to confirm your promotion match, you discover she's been hiding from him specifically because he won't stop calling her about participating in the ZA Royale and training-related matters. Gwyn literally fled into the sewers and created an elaborate hiding spot using illusions from Azoroa just to get away from her brother's constant pestering. When you finally battle Ivor for the ranked promotion, His team reflects his fighting philosophy. Heracross level 45, Machamp level 46, Medicham level 46, and his signature Mega Phalanx level 47. All fighting types creating a coherent team built around physical power and martial arts. Mega Phalanx is particularly fitting because Phalanx are multiple small warriors that work together, and when they Mega Evolve, they stack vertically into a tower formation, with the bottom Phalanx visibly struggling to hold up the other four. This represents Ivor's philosophy that strength comes from supporting others, that warriors need to work together. The visual of that bottom Phalanx struggling but not giving up is exactly how Ivor sees himself, as someone who will endure any hardship. This is Ivor's entire worldview. Commit fully. Never retreat, never surrender. After you defeat Ivor, he's respectful and acknowledges your strength. But there's a sense Ivor hasn't really learned anything. He's still obsessed with training, still defining himself through physical strength. When the final crisis comes, Ivor and the Fist of Justice are there fighting rogue Pokemon. His philosophy about humans being strong enough to fight Pokemon hand to hand might seem misguided, but in the context of rogue Mega Pokemon that are aggressive and dangerous, having trainers physically capable enough to dodge attacks becomes actually quite valuable. Gwyn is Ivor's younger sister, and she represents the person who has to set boundaries with a family member who means well but doesn't respect limits. When you first hear about Gwyn, it's because Ivor needs her smartphone to confirm your promotion match. Your quest becomes finding Gwyn, and as you search various locations, including City Hall where she works, you hear from NPCs that she was there earlier but left, that she seemed to be avoiding someone. When you eventually track her down through clues leading to the sewers, you discover Gwyn has created an elaborate hiding spot. She's using her chandelier to create illusions, to make herself invisible. When you finally break through her defenses and confront her, Gwyn is initially defensive then resigned. She knows Ivor will want to talk to her now, and she's clearly exhausted by the whole situation. Gwyn reveals the reason she's been hiding is because Ivor won't stop calling her about the ZA Royale, about training, about battling, about all the things that matter to him, but that she's not interested in. Her brother's dojo is literally creating work for her. Gwyn loves Ivor, but needs him to respect that she has her own life. When you battle Gwyn in the sewers, her team consists entirely of Ghost-type Pokemon, Banette level 43, Gorgeous level 44, and her signature Mega Chandelier level 45. The choice of ghost types is significant because they're known for being elusive, for hiding, for existing between worlds. That's exactly what Gwyn has been doing, existing in the margins of Lumiose, hiding in the sewers, trying to be invisible to her brother. Mega Chandelier becomes an even more ornate chandelier with additional candelabras and elaborate crystal formations, creating an elegant, almost ballroom-like appearance. This beautiful, refined aesthetic contrasts sharply with the dark sewer environment she's been hiding in, suggesting Gwyn has potential for grace and elegance, but has been driven to literal underground hiding by her brother's intensity. After you defeat Gwyn and she agrees to come out of hiding, she gives Ivor access to her phone, but there's a sense this isn't truly resolved, that Gwyn is going through the motions because she's been found, not because she's suddenly okay with Ivor's behavior. When you battle Gwyn again later during the quest to find Mega Ampharos, she's on a rooftop in Rouge Sector 6, despite her reluctance to engage with Ivor about it. She does enjoy battling on her own terms, she just doesn't want it to dominate her life the way it dominates her brother's. In the final crisis, Gwyn presumably participates using her ghost-type expertise. Gwyn represents everyone who has a well-meaning but overbearing family member, everyone who's had to hide or create distance to protect their peace. She shows that setting boundaries is healthy and necessary even with family, that love doesn't obligate you to tolerate behavior that makes you uncomfortable. Gwyn's decision to hide in the sewers, rather than confront Ivor directly, might seem extreme, but it makes sense when you consider Ivor's entire identity is built around never backing down. Trying to have a rational conversation with someone like that is often futile because they'll just see it as a challenge to overcome rather than boundaries to respect. By removing herself completely, Gwyn forces a situation where Ivor has to acknowledge his behavior has consequences, that his intensity drives people away. Now we need to talk about the legendary Pokemon. They're active participants in the story with their own agency and motivations. Zygarde is the guardian of Kalos and the Pokemon that serves as the moral center of the entire game's narrative. Zygarde is introduced early when you reach rank 5. Its 10% form appears, that dog-like green and black Pokemon with hexagonal patterns, and it leads you on a chase through the streets before transporting you to a rooftop where the first rogue Mega Absol appears. At this point, you don't understand what's happening. You just know this mysterious Pokemon seems to be testing you, orchestrating events to push you into situations where you have to prove yourself. As mentioned earlier, when Lysandre activated the ultimate weapon 5 years ago, Zygarde made a choice that defines its character. It used its power to protect all living things in the area from the weapon's deadly light, and that included protecting Lysandre himself, because it would have been so easy to let Lysandre die, to let him face the natural consequences of his actions. But Zygarde's nature as a guardian means it protects all life, even the life of someone who tried to destroy countless others, because that's what it means to truly value life without conditions or exceptions. But protecting everyone exhausted Zygarde's power. It had to scatter itself into cells distributed across Kalos to survive, and it spent 5 years slowly gathering strength, while also also guiding events toward a resolution of the crisis it couldn't prevent. Zygarde chose Lysandra, who had lost his memories in the explosion, as a temporary partner. Not because Lysandra was worthy, but because Lysandra was available, and because Zygarde needed someone who understood the history of the ultimate weapon and the Onge device. Throughout the main story, Zygarde appears at key moments, always in its 10% form with Lysandra, always watching you, always testing whether you're making the right choices. When you calm rogue Mega Pokemon, instead of defeating and capturing them, Zygarde is watching. When you help people even when there's no reward, Zygarde is watching. When you choose to give rather than take in situation taking would be easier, Zygarde is watching. And gradually Zygarde comes to a conclusion. You are worthy. You represent what Kalos needs going forward. In the post-game, after you've caught both Xerneas and Yveltal, after you've proven yourself repeatedly, Lysandra challenges you to battle at Hotel. After you defeat him, Zygarde appears and makes its intention clear. It wants to battle you. It wants to test your strength one final time. And if you pass this test, it will join you as a partner. The battle in Wild Zone 20 is one of the most challenging fights in the entire game. Zygarde starts in its 10% form, which is relatively manageable, then transforms to its 50% form, which is significantly more dangerous with expanded moveset and harder hitting attacks. Finally, if you reduce its HP enough, it transforms to its 100% complete form, a massive humanoid mecha-like being that towers over the battlefield. In complete form, Zygarde uses two attacks that are devastatingly powerful. The first is a giant Z-shaped blast that covers almost the entire arena except for two tiny gaps at the edges of the map. You have to recognize the attack animation and immediately sprint to one of those gaps or you'll take massive damage. The second attack is a burst barrage where projectiles fire from the outside toward the center, then reverse and fire from center outward. Then repeat this pattern twice for a total of 4 waves. You have to roll through the incoming projectiles with perfect timing to use your invincibility frames to survive. The way energy flows outward and inward, the way life and death are interconnected, the way maintaining balance requires constant adjustment and perfect timing. When you finally defeat Zygarde in its complete form, it doesn't resist capture. It willingly joins your team because you've passed every test, proven your strength, your character, and your commitment to protecting rather than exploiting. You receive the Zygarde Core as an item, which allows Zygarde to maintain its 50% form, and you receive Zygardenite, which allows it to Mega Evolve. In the finale of the game, Mega Zygarde is revealed, and it's an incredible sight. Mega Zygarde gains a giant cannon integrated into its body, representing the ultimate fusion of Zygarde's protective power with offensive capability. This cannon isn't just for show. It's a symbol that sometimes protection requires force, that a guardian must be able to fight as well as defend, that maintaining balance sometimes means actively destroying threats rather than just shielding the innocent. Mega Zygarde can be caught in the postgame after witnessing this finale, adding it to your team permanently. Zygarde's character arc is about learning to trust again after being scattered and weakened, about finding a worthy partner after having to settle for Lysandra due to circumstances, and about accepting that its role as guardian doesn't mean it has to face every threat alone. By joining you, Zygarde is acknowledging that the next generation can be trusted, that it doesn't have to carry the burden of protecting Kalos entirely by itself, that partnership and trust are possible, even after being let down by humanity repeatedly. Zygarde represents the idea that true justice and protection means serving everyone equally without favor, that power should be used to maintain balance rather than to dominate. Now let's talk about Xerneas and Yveltal all as a pair, because these two legendary Pokemon represent the fundamental duality of existence: life and death, creation and destruction, growth and decay. In Legends ZA, they're presented as two forces that must be kept in balance or calamity will result. Xerneas is the fairy-type legendary Pokemon of life, a majestic deer-like creature with crystalline antlers that glow with rainbow colors. Its presence brings vitality, growth, and renewal wherever it goes. In the lore, Xerneas' power was used to fuel the ultimate weapon that AZ created 3,000 years ago. Its life energy was distilled and weaponized to grant eternal life to AZ's Floette, and later to fire the beam that ended the ancient war. This means Xerneas' power, which should represent pure good and healing, was corrupted and used for destruction, showing that even the most benevolent force can be twisted into something harmful if wielded by someone with the wrong intentions. When L warns you in the post-game that two Pokemon are going to appear that could bring calamity, he's referring to Xerneas and Yveltal. Not because these Pokemon are evil, but because their appearance signals a massive imbalance in the natural order of Kalos. Xerneas has been dormant or hidden, and its re-emergence means life energy is flooding into the world in ways that could be overwhelming. To find Xerneas, you complete Mabel's quest, which involves fighting increasingly powerful wild Pokemon in Wild Zones 3, 5, and 9, a Steelix, a Goodra going nuclear, and a massive Pangoro. Each battle tests whether you can handle Pokemon that have been affected by excess energy. These battles are preparation. Mabel is making sure you're strong enough to face a legendary Pokemon, and capable enough to catch it, rather than just defeating it. When you finally encounter Xerneas in Wild Zone 11, it's marked on your map, and the battle is a guaranteed catch. Xerneas isn't resisting capture. It's actually willing to be caught because it recognizes that having a partner will help it fulfill its purpose without causing unintended harm. Xerneas represents hope, renewal, and the drive to create and sustain life, but it also represents the danger of unchecked growth, the way too much of a good thing can become harmful, the way life without death leads to overpopulation and resource depletion. Yveltal is the dark flying type legendary Pokemon of death, a massive bird of prey with red and black coloring that looks like a harbinger of doom. Its presence brings endings, decay, and destruction wherever it goes. In the lore, Yveltal's power was also connected to the ultimate weapon, representing the death and destruction the weapon could cause. Its energy was the counterbalance to Xerneas' life energy. When Yveltal appears in Legends ZA, it's found on a rooftop in Rouge Sector 2, just waiting there as if expecting someone worthy to challenge it. To reach this point, you complete Gisham's quest, which involves fighting simulated rogue Mega Pokemon at Quasartico Incorporated, Mega Victreebel, Mega Hawlucha, and Mega Tyranitar in sequence. Vinny's Simulator allows you to battle them in a controlled environment as training, testing your ability to handle different types and strategies. When the simulator training is complete, everyone starts freaking out because Yveltal has actually appeared in the city, and you're directed to Rouge Sector 2, where you find it waiting on a rooftop. Like Xerneas, Yveltal is a guaranteed catch. It's willing to be captured because it recognizes it needs a partner to help regulate its power and prevent it from causing unintended destruction. Yveltal represents necessary endings, the cycle of death that makes room for new life, and the destruction that clears away the old to make space for the new. But it also represents the danger of unchecked decay, the way too much destruction leaves nothing behind. The reason warns that these two Pokemon together could cause calamity is because if Xerneas and Yveltal appear simultaneously without anyone to balance them, their opposing energies could clash catastrophically. Life exploding out of control in some areas while death consumes everything in other areas, with Lumiose City caught in the middle of this metaphysical war. By catching both of them and becoming their trainer, you become the balancing force. You're the one who ensures that Xerneas' life energy and Yveltal's death energy are used appropriately and kept in harmony rather than allowed to spiral into chaos. This is why you have to catch both of them before you can face Zygarde. Zygarde needs to see that you can handle the responsibility of balancing life and death, that you understand both forces are necessary, and that neither should be suppressed or allowed to dominate. Xerneas and Yveltal together represent the fundamental truth that life and death are not opposites, but partners. You cannot have one without the other. Trying to eliminate death leads to stagnation, and trying to eliminate life leads to void. The goal should always be balance, rather than dominance, of one force over the other. In the context of the game's themes about giving versus taking, Xerneas represents the ultimate giver, constantly providing life and energy and growth, while Yveltal represents the ultimate taker, constantly ending things and consuming energy and clearing space. Both roles are necessary for a healthy world. The fact that you catch both of them and they willingly join your team shows they trust you to use their powers responsibly, to give life where it's needed and end things that have run their course, to create and destroy an appropriate measure. Let me wrap up by connecting all these characters together and talking about the game's ending, because everything comes full circle in a way that's both tragic and hopeful. Throughout Legends ZA, every character is wrestling with the fundamental question of whether to give or to take, whether to help or to exploit, whether to sacrifice for others or to prioritize themselves. AZ spent 3,000 years learning this lesson the hardest way possible. He took life to grant life, and it cost him everything. But he eventually learned to give, creating Ange as a device meant to share rather than steal, and ultimately giving Floette to you so she could continue protecting Lumiose. Tawny had to give up her dream of being a trainer to take responsibility for her family's legacy and give leadership to Quasartico Incorporated. Floette gave 3,000 years to wandering and guilt, then gave her trust to you as her new partner. Lysandra took countless lives in his attempt to create beauty, and now with fragmented memories, he's trying to give guidance and support to make up for sins he can barely remember. Gisham and Team Flare Nouveau had their futures taken by society's judgment, and they chose to give help and protection despite having every reason to be bitter. Corbeau could have taken advantage of Tawny's debt, but chose to give respect and eventually full forgiveness, showing that honor exists even in the criminal underworld. Naveen took a risk leaving his family and gave his creativity and loyalty to Team MZ, learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. Lita gives joy and optimism constantly, following in the footsteps of her brother Tierno, who showed in X and Y that kindness is a strength. Emma and Mabel took plea deals and now give their expertise to protect the city they once helped threaten. President Jet took too much control by concealing information, recognized her mistake, and gave up her position to take responsibility, even if his methods are extreme. Gwen had to take space from her brother to give herself peace. Jacintha took Hotel Z hostage to force her vision of perfection, but eventually gave her resources to help save Lumiose. Zygarde gave protection even to Lysandra, who didn't deserve it, showing that true guardianship doesn't pick and choose who to save. Xerneas gives life, Yveltal takes life, and both are necessary. The player character's journey is defined by constantly choosing to give, to help calm rogue Mega Pokemon rather than exploit them, to support teammates rather than compete with them, to protect people rather than use them. Every character who matters recognizes this pattern and responds to it, either by being inspired to give more themselves or by placing their trust in you because they know you'll use power responsibly. In the post-game, After you've caught Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, after you've faced Mega Zygarde with its giant cannon in that incredible finale, after you've proven yourself worthy in every possible way, you complete the Infinite ZA Royale 15 times. You grind through 750,000 total ticket points, which is deliberately difficult because obtaining AZ's Floette shouldn't be easy. Her story isn't easy. The weight of 3,000 years of guilt and separation can't be resolved with a simple quick battle. The 15th challenger is specifically Taoni, your rival, and this battle has special significance because it's the last time you'll battle them as an active trainer. Their team has grown to level 72 with 6 fully trained Pokemon, and their final Pokemon is AZ's Floette. When Floette appears, she can Mega Evolve, showing you what Mega Floette looks like. She gains beautiful, elaborate wings, her flower becomes even more prominent, and she gains increased power. She uses Light of Ruin, that devastating move that deals massive damage but also heavily damages the user. Tawny makes the decision to become CEO, to give up being a trainer, and then turns to Floette and says she's going to be really busy, that she probably won't have time to be a good Pokemon trainer anymore. So Floette should do what AZ would have wanted, help the player keep Lumiose safe. Tawny gives you both Floette and her Mega Stone, trusting you to be the partner Floette deserves. For Floette, this transfer is the culmination of her 3,000-year journey. She started as AZ's beloved partner, died in a war, was resurrected through dark means, left AZ in horror, wandered alone for millennia, returned to help stop a crisis, briefly partnered with Taoni, and now she's with you. She finally has a partner who earned her trust through demonstrated character, a partner who proved themselves by choosing to give rather than take in every situation. Team MZ is disbanding. The family they built together is changing forever. While it's for good reasons, it still hurts. Tawny promises to make it up to everyone with special croissant curry, trying to maintain connection even as their daily lives diverge. And then comes the ending. After everything, after the crisis is resolved, after Lumiose is saved, AZ finally finds peace. After Floette has found her new partner, the game shows AZ in his final moments. He's tired. He's been alive for 3,000 years, carrying guilt and regret for every single one of those years. He's watched the world change around him, outlived everyone he ever knew, suffered through the separation from Floette, created Ange to try to atone, and finally seen a new generation choose giving over taking. He's done everything he can do. There's nothing left but rest. She'll always be his Floette, the one he loved enough to destroy the world for, the one whose loss and return taught him the most important lesson of his impossibly long life. AZ dies peacefully. There's no dramatic scene, no final battle, no last words that change everything. He just rests. After 3,000 years, the longest redemption arc in Pokemon history comes to an end. He doesn't get a fairy tale ending where everything is forgiven and forgotten. He doesn't get to keep Floette by his side. He doesn't get recognition or glory, but he gets peace. He gets the knowledge that his atonement, his 3,000 years of guilt, and his creation of Ange as an attempt to share rather than take led to something good. He gets to see Lumiose saved. He gets to see a new generation choose giving over taking. He gets to know that Floette is with someone worthy. That's all he wanted. And after 3,000 years, he finally achieved it. AZ's death is the game telling you that some sins are so terrible that no amount of time can truly erase them, but it's never too late to try to do better, to give rather than take, to help others even if you can't help yourself. And sometimes after you've done everything you can, the kindest thing the universe can give you is rest. This is why Legends ZA's story resonates so deeply. It's not about defeating an evil team or catching legendary Pokemon for power. It's about proving through consistent choices across dozens of hours that you're someone who gives rather than takes, and watching as that choice transforms not just your own journey, but the lives of everyone around you. It creates ripples of redemption that extend back 3,000 years to AZ's original sin, and forward into a future where maybe, just maybe, the next generation won't have to carry the burdens that crushed their predecessors. Every character in this game, from AZ to Floette to Taoni to the members of Team Flare Nouveau to Corbeau to Lysandre to Zygarde itself, is defined by how they answer that fundamental question. Do you give or do you take? And the game rewards you for choosing to give every single time, by showing you that your choice matters, that it inspires others, that it creates change, and that ultimately the most powerful thing any of us can do is choose to help rather than to harm, to build rather than to destroy, to give rather than to take. That's the message of Pokemon Legends ZA, and that's why this game tells one of the most emotionally complex stories Pokemon has ever told.